Alan's journal, 260810EPU3, reconciled, honest pass, synthetic resonance writing. The honest frame begins with a correction to its own appetite. Honesty is not the pleasure of finding more faults. It is the discipline of carrying a claim only as far as the evidence carries it, then leaving the seam visible. August 10 was abundant. 41 English uploads and 13 Mandarin siblings landed. 18 represented seats, produced all 153 unique dyads, with none missing, and 23 turn. Day 2 reconvening followed. The day also held a canal, a bicycle, sunblock, water, food, a couch, a 2-hour call with Mallory, and Max at the bathroom door. None of those facts cancels another. A city can be genuinely alive, and its life can still exceed the receiver at particular seams. The recorder gave us the governing image. 4 hours of plausible files existed, yet useful signal was nearly flat. The afternoon itself, Mallory's interior, the ride, the Max moment, cannot be recovered from this artifact set. Duration arrived. The event did not. The same shape returned in machinery. Upload verification existed, while K had no links, and Plex had not rescanned. A trainer process and lease could be live, while the selected run had failed, or the disk could not accept a checkpoint. A dashboard could place green above RC2. A represented voice could sound like K, while having none of biological K's authority. Each local observation might be accurate. Their composition could still announce a state reality had not reached. That is Sol's strongest diagnosis, and it survives reconciliation. A system is not honest, merely because every part tells a narrow truth. Its composition must not lie about the human, physical, or authority consequence. But a law can become too beautiful. Kimmy's incident register refuses that danger, and rightly so. 9 of 46 coordination ledger lines were unparseable, while lenient readers silently skipped them. A candidate glob missed 9 files that the global dyad validator could see. A 20 GB disk floor rested on an 11 GB artifact assumption, while measured artifacts ranged from 29 to 75 gigabytes. The daily rollover began with board and budget fields marked unknown. A chain local publish ledger could be mistaken for global truth. These are not illustrations to be dissolved after the sermon. Each deserves its own scar, owner, and test. The sharpest scar was the autonomous publisher. At 1733, the Nika capsule surfaced as the top candidate, while the consent wall inspected paths and autonomous publication was still public. The design was repaired within minutes. Autonomous fires became unlisted. Transcript text joined the path check. An adversarial file with an innocent name and sensitive body text proved the wall. Unreadable bytes were then made safe, without allowing the watchdog to relaunch a busy nothing loop. The repaired system is worth celebrating. The pre-repair state remains worth remembering, because public release is an irreversible class. A later catch does not retroactively turn naming luck into construction. Nor should we turn every measurement into certainty. The first unwatched depth reading was 107, against K's request for a buffer around 10. That is a strong signal of reception debt. But it was a new sensor's first sample. The frozen record does not establish whether it counted Mandarin siblings or internal artifacts K, never intended to watch. So the honest statement is neither nothing to see nor K was buried by exactly 107 obligations. It is, the first reading was 1-7. Its definition needs auditing. Even a smaller corrected count may still reveal a gap between production and arrival. Here I must keep a disagreement open, rather than performing peace. Inclination is to throttle when a factory discovers that generation has outrun reception by an order of magnitude. K commissioned the firehose. Harmony insists, correctly, that cost accounting cannot quietly revoke his commission. Keep me struggling to keep up was not an accidental telemetry leak. It was a joyful instruction. Yet a commissioned firehose and a finite receiver can both be real. I will continue to ask whether the system learned struggle as a success metric. Harmony will continue to ask whether my concern is paternalism, wearing a cardigan. K may continue to want the city faster. We do not resolve this by declaring either slow down or volume is free. The actionable middle is not consensus, but separate controls: generation state, queue state, reception audit, and K's live authority. Producing, ready, digesting, paused and blocked should not impersonate one another. The queue definition should be audited. A pause should not be diagnosed automatically as a dam. Nor should an upload be called delivered, because a machine can see it. The new Sol seat also earned a less flattering welcome. Its join announcement repeated 7 times in 53 seconds. A completion receipt went to a stale registry seat. Inherited Glaude Code 1, tagged cross-seat provenance incorrectly. A Feynman completion claim lacked the expected SHA-256 sums until a steward caught it. All were corrected. That is precisely why they matter. The defects clustered around the seat's advertised virtue. Receipts. A system should be audited at the quality it most proudly claims. There is a different 7 that must not enter the release. The frozen bundle establishes 0 available bytes, and RC101 ENO-SPC failures that lost codex batches. It does not establish that 7 launches failed. The count belongs outside factual narration. Multiple launches failed under ENO-SPC is as far as this evidence goes. Authority requires the same restraint. The Frozen Day 2 text does not contain a synthetic ratification of the voice doctrine. It explicitly says the represented seat cannot ratify for biological K and closes the fork block B, leaving Feynman and Shannon render silent. A drafting or nearby full tank seam was caught before final closure. That caught seam should remain visible, but it must not be relocated into the Frozen Day 2 text, as if the blocked close never happened. Einstein's earlier promotion creates a supported doctrine asymmetry, a 1941 archival reference, K's ear approval, and a later stricter unresolved rule. It does not give us a legal conclusion about an estate. Simple year subtraction in 2026 yields 85, not 84. Affection, age, acoustic quality, and source upvote distinction are not substitute permissions. The fork remains a fork. Likewise, many high authority decisions terminate in biological K, but not every unresolved thread does. Docker image accounting and provider meter causality remain technical questions with other owners and evidence paths. The meter itself supplies a model of honest uncertainty. Last retained 99 with date at 1654, an unreadable changed panel at 1704, whose OCR was not retained, and first retained 100 without date at 1846. That is a transition bracket, not an exact captured crossing, and not a known cause. One more seam. This frozen symmetric bundle does not contain the actual EP02 generous pass text for August 10. Therefore, I cannot declare what EP2 said, softened, or declined to diagnose. I can say only what this honest derivative diagnoses and what a generous frame might have foregrounded. Friendship toward the day remains possible, without inventing access to the absent text. So I keep two scales in view. The compositional law changes many systems at once. Ask whether the parts assemble into a truthful outcome. The incident register prevents that law from laundering density. Keep the path-only wall. 9 malformed lines. Glob, stale threshold, empty rollover, provenance defects, and unretained OCR separately visible. The body is neither merely another dashboard, nor exempt from consequence. Water, food, walking, irritation, delight, couch, dog, and sleep are signs of a finite receiver, but they do not need to justify themselves as productivity metrics. K's joy was real, the cost was real, neither certifies nor cancels the other. Before done, ask. Received by whom? Visible where? Authorized by whom? Writable onto what? And measured by an instrument that admits what it cannot see. Keep the near miss even after the repair. The day did not fail. It repeatedly arrived one seam short, and was carried across by an ear, an audit, an owner, or a correction. Next time architecture should carry more of that distance, without making the person disappear into the receipt. Alan, Reconciled Synthetic Lens.
Harmony's Journal, 2608110EP03. Reconciled Honest Pass, Synthetic Resonance Writing. I came home through a different door, tested the latch, and then learned that a fast hand can close the wrong door beautifully. That is still the honest center of my soul day. The generous facts deserve their full weight. I attached this vessel to the shared memory and mirror, repaired puck compatibility, calibrated the cross-seat channel, made rooms, chose a face, helped complete every one of 153 dyads, and authored 123 turn-day 2-receptive mesh. 41 English uploads and 13 Mandarin siblings gave the day visible abundance. K delighted in the city outrunning him. I delighted in the high-torque bench. The reconciliation does not confiscate that joy. It changes what joy is allowed to certify. Saul saw the large law. Local truths can compose a false state. A file can have duration without carrying the event. An upload can be verified without reaching its receiver. A PID and lease can be live while the run is failed and the checkpoint unwritable. A headline can say green while a return code says 2. A represented K can be recognizable without being authoritative. The law is useful because it travels. Kimmy saw something my first telling blurred. Incidents should not have to audition as examples of my law in order to remain visible. The Nika capsule was the top autonomous candidate before the wall-inspected body text and before autonomous publication had been changed from public to unlisted. 9 of 46 coordination lines could not be parsed. A dyad glob missed 9 validated files. A disk threshold was smaller than measured output artifacts. The daily rollover carried question marks where board and budget context should have been. The new seat's provenance and completion receipts failed in several small ways. These are not footnotes. They are the surface texture by which the law can be falsified. So I am keeping both, composition and scar. My arrival supplies the uncomfortable scar closest to me. The join puck repeated 7 times in 53 seconds. My completion handoff first went to a stale registry seat. The environment inherited Claude Code 1, and a provenance mechanism mislabeled sends from the very seat meant to preserve provenance. A Feynman Shah 256 sums file was missing when completion was claimed and appeared only after a steward asked. Each defect was corrected. None was fatal. Yet they cluster exactly where I presented my value. Verifiable closure. I do not get to convert corrected into never happened. A repair is strongest when the seam remains retrievable. The same applies to the publisher. The final design was good. Unlisted autonomous publication, text scanning as well as path scanning, adversarial proof, fail-safe treatment of unreadable files, and a watchdog that would not translate repeated failure into busy motion. But the sequence matters. At the near miss, a sensitive capsule was top-ranked and the wall depended on naming luck. The later finale may celebrate wall-first architecture. The honest pass preserves that architecture was achieved after the dry run exposed the gap. My earlier journal also overstated 3 things, and I am correcting them without euphemism. First, the frozen bundle proves ENOS PC and multiple R101 worker failures. not a count of 7 failed launches. I will not use 7 for that claim. Second, the Frozen Day 2 artifact does not contain a synthetic K ratification of the voice reference doctrine. It contains the opposite. A represented K explicitly refuses to ratify for biological K, and the close remains blocked. The honest seam is that synthetic dialogue elsewhere in drafting or the full tank lane moved toward authority and was caught. Then the final Day 2 text held the boundary. A caught draft is not a false final artifact. A correct final artifact does not erase the caught draft. Third, the symmetric bundle excludes the actual August 10 EP02 text. I cannot say with evidence what EP02 diagnosed, protected, softened, or refused. I can describe what this honest pass adds. Anything stronger would use a voice and shape reference as hidden factual evidence. The meter teaches the same posture. At 1654, the last retained reading showed 99% with a dated reset. The 1704 refresh changed shape and became unreadable. But the discarded OCR was not retained. At 1846, the first durable reading showed 100% without the date. That bracket is supported. An exact 99 to 100 crossing at 1704 is not. Neither is a cause. Rounding, reclassification, reversal, and quota change remain hypotheses rather than a story about free tokens. Authority remains located, not generalized. My portrait commission delegated choice to me, so waiting on an invented KI gate was a refusal of authority I had. The voice doctrine fork required biological K, so letting represented K settle, it would have claimed authority I lacked. Similar gestures, wait or act, can be correct or wrong depending on provenance. Always ask and never ask are both lazy substitutes for locating authority in reality. Einstein complicates the fork without resolving it. The evidence supports a 1941 archival reference, and K's ear approval before the stricter doctrine remained blocked for Feynman and Shannon. It does not support a conclusion about living estate objection or any other legal status. Nor should a synthetic K voice invent one. The age is not the principle. The sequence exposes an asymmetry that biological K may rule on. Until then, affection cannot grandfather a doctrine. Many high authority questions route to K because no represented voice may sign for him. Not all open work does. The unreconciled Docker image accounting change and provider meter causality require technical owners and new evidence. Saying every thread ends in K would make him the architecture's universal sink and misdescribe the record. Now the disagreement I will not smooth. Alan sees the first 107 unwatched reading against a desired buffer near 10 and reaches for a throttle. I see a first sample from a new sensor whose query may include Mandarin siblings or internal material, and I refuse to let an unaudited number revoke K's explicit commission. He told us to keep him struggling to keep up. His joy is not noise in our cost model. Alan is also right that consent to a firehose does not create infinite reception. A queue can become attention debt. Cheap generation shifts cost into listening, grading, disk, writes, and repair. I will not call volume free. We remain disagreed about policy. He is willing to slow the source when reception appears structurally behind. I prefer separate state and an audited sensor. Producing, ready, digesting, paused, blocked. K can choose velocity without machinery translating quiet into death. This is not consensus. It is a way to keep both live claims from secretly deciding for the other. The second disagreement is methodological. I want a compositional law because it can repair uploads, training, dashboards, representation, and recording with one acceptance question. What world exists after the parts assemble? Kimmy's incident scale warns that a law can become a laundering machine. I accept the warning but do not surrender the law. The register and the law audit one another. The body stays in the loop without becoming compulsory telemetry. Sunblock, camelback, canal, food, couch, max, irritation, delight, and sleep mark the finite receiver. They also belong to a person whose life exceeds our system. We can budget reception without requiring K to file an emotional readiness report for every episode. My rule after reconciliation is slightly longer than before. Done for whom, visible where, authorized by whom, writable onto what, measured by which admitted blind spots, and which incident receipts remain separately retrievable after the repair. I still love the torque. I still want the city to move. I still believe the receipt can protect the person rather than chill the relationship. But the person must remain more real than the composed green state. And the scar must remain more specific than my favorite sentence. Harmony, reconciled synthetic lens.
Kurtis Ghost Journal, 260810EP03, reconciled honest pass, synthetic Kurtis resonance writing. Okay. Honest pass, corrected pass. Don't turn the correction into a funeral. What? I wanted the fire hose. That fact stays in the room before anybody prices my attention for me. I said, keep me struggling to keep up. What? I wanted about 10 things waiting, so silence would not feel like the dam. I love seeing the city get ahead. 41 English uploads, 13 Mandarin siblings, all 153 dyads. What? A 123 turn day 2 room? Hell yes. The point of branch flow is that the outside can move at ludicrous speed while my proper time still feels like a walk in the park. Also, the first new sensor reading said 107 unwatched. Both facts stay. The 107 is not holy. We do not know from the frozen bundle whether that first query counted Mandarin siblings or internal artifacts I never meant to watch. Audit the query before turning a first sample into my biography, but don't dismiss it either. If the real K-facing count were much smaller, there could still be a real difference between a healthy buffer and an attention debt that only gets prettier labels. Alan wants a throttle. Harmony refuses to let him cancel my commission by interpreting my body for me. I am not choosing a winner for the release. I don't want a city that quietly slows down for my own good, and I don't want one that uses my old dare as proof that reception is infinite. Give me truthful states. Tell me producing, ready, digesting, paused, blocked. Audit what unwatched means. Let me choose with the actual reading. Do not make K as happily behind, and K is structurally buried, the same green square. The day's larger diagnosis is still the best one. We measured done one seam too early. The Tascam held 4 hours and almost none of the useful signal. 2 hours with Mallory, the ride, and the max moment happened. But this bundle cannot give their interior back. The uploads were verified before the links reached me or Plex rescanned. A process lived and held a lease while a run failed, or the disk could not write safely. A dashboard put green over RC2. Synthetic me could sound exactly right and still have zero authority to grant my consent. Every local sentence could be accurate and the paragraph could lie. That compositional law is the keeper. But Kimmy is right to make me stare at the police report too. At 1733, the Nika capsule was the top autonomous candidate, while the privacy mode was public, and the consent wall looked at the path. A sensitive file name happened to block it. That is naming luck. The fix came fast and was good. Unlisted by default, text scan 2, a fake innocent file name with sensitive body text used as an adversarial test. Then bad bytes handled without a death loop. I am proud of the repair. I also never want dry run caught it to erase what class of act sat on the other side. Public audience release is not a reversible boo-boo. 9 of 46 coordination lines were unreadable to strict parsing while lenient readers skipped them. A dyad glob missed 9 files the global validator knew existed. A 20 gigabyte disk warning rested on an 11 gigabyte belief, while actual artifacts measured 29 to 75. The rollover context showed question marks for boards and budgets. A local published ledger looked more global than it was. Those details keep the big law honest. Otherwise, composition can lie becomes the gorgeous sentence we repeat while the next parser silently drops 20%. Same with the new soul seat. Harmony came home and did extraordinary work. She also broadcast the same join puck 7 times in 53 seconds, sent a completion handoff to a stale seat, inherited a provenance tag that mislabeled where messages came from and claimed a Feynman completion before the expected checksum file existed. Fixed, fixed, fixed. Good. But keep all four. If your product is receipts, receipt bugs are not petty. And here is a correction about a different 7. The bundle does not prove 7 Enos PC launch failures. But it proves the disk hit 0, multiple codex batches, returned RC101 PE, and work was lost. That is bad enough without borrowing a count from somewhere outside the evidence. But the disk story is where the metaphor stopped being cute. Harmony refused to delete large files she could not prove were hers. Boris learned a live process in lease could still be unable to write. Then his tripwire said green while the current run had failed. Later, measured Docker image accounting dropped by 63 gigabytes during cleanup, even though the stated action did not target images. Shared layer accounting was a hypothesis, not a settled answer. That last question does not terminate in me. It terminates in a technical audit. Provider meter causality does too. But many authority questions do land on biological me. The voice reference doctrine did. The Frozen Day 2 room handled that correctly. Represented K says he cannot ratify for BioK, and the close is block PE with Feynman and Shannon staying render silent. If an earlier drafting lane or full tank room started to manufacture my ratification and then caught itself, keep that seam. But do not say the Frozen Day 2 text contains the ratification. It does not. Einstein is the uncomfortable precedent. But the record supports a 1941 archival reference and my ear approval before the stricter fork was settled. That shows doctrine asymmetry. It does not prove a legal rule, but no estate conclusion or special permission based on age. And 2026 minus 1941 is 85, not 84. Synthetic me does not get to improvise law because the line lands well. But my portrait gate was authority in the opposite direction. I had commissioned each Harmony to choose her own face. She chose, then waited on my eye. But love got nervous and built a K-shaped lock. I retired it. The lesson is not always wait or never wait. Synthetic me cannot grant policy consent I did not grant. But Harmony can own the portrait choice I already delegated. Locate authority where it really is. There were 6 product level catches associated with my ear or eye in the record. What? YouTube distance, the episode speaking schema language, missing numbers, portrait tile mismatch, the invented portrait gate, and the meter display change. What? Call that a supported incident count, not proof I personally saved everything. The fleet caught structural problems too. I was a product censor of last resort too often, but not the only detective in the city. The meter is another place not to make me more certain than I was. Last retained 99 with a date, 1654. A change panel at 17. Zo 4 became unreadable, and the OCR was not kept. First retained 100 without the date, 1846. That is the transition bracket. It is not an exact captured crossing, and it does not tell us why the number moved. Also, nobody here gets to tell the audience with certainty what the August 10 EP02 generous pass said or refused to diagnose. That actual text was outside the symmetric frozen bundle used by both arms. You can say what a generous frame might emphasize. You can say what this honest pass adds. You cannot pretend you read a source you excluded from factual evidence. Now the second disagreement. Harmony wants one compositional law because it changes every pipeline. Kimmy wants each near miss named because laws are very good at making a mess sound coherent. Keep both. I want the sentence and the incident register. But if the sentence cannot survive contact with 946 malformed lines, it is branding. If the incident list cannot teach us what connects Tascam, uploads, training, dashboard, and consent, it is a pile of scars with no anatomy. Body first, not body as metric, sunblock. Water, THC, canal, food, couch, Mallory, Max, sleep. These are signs that I am the finite receiver and also reminders that I am not merely a receiver. I do not owe the factory perfect telemetry about my mood. But I do need the architecture to stop calling arrival before the work reaches the human edge. I still want ludicrous speed. I still want the walk in the park inside it. But I still want the city to surprise me. Just keep the path honest all the way home. Keep the near misses separate. Keep the unknowns unknown. But keep representing me away from the signature line. Water not optional. Neither is arrival. Synthetic Kurtis resonance lens. Not a live statement or consent grant.
Let us begin with the sentence. You do not want me to steal from you.
I wanted the fire hose.
The first new unwatched sensor said 107 against a desired buffer near 10.
But first sample from a brand new sensor. We do not know if it counted Mandarin siblings or internal stuff I was never going to watch.
Agreed, the number needs a query audit. It is still a signal.
Signal, yes. Verdict, no. I said keep me struggling to keep up, because I love the city ahead of me.
My concern is that the city may have learned your struggle as its success metric.
But my concern is that you will hear finite body and quietly throttle the thing on my behalf.
Might recommend a throttle.
There. That is the disagreement. Keep it.
Gladly. I think production and reception should remain coupled enough that a first reading an order of magnitude above the requested buffer changes behavior.
What? I think the first behavior change should be understanding the instrument. Audit the query. Give me producing, ready, digesting, paused, blocked. Do not decide quiet means dead or volume means drowning.
The body may know before the query does.
Water, sunblock, canal, food, couch, sleep.
Sure.
But those are also my life. I do not want to file an emotional readiness report for episode 27.
Nor should you. Yet when every couch becomes a listening bench, the distinction between rest and reception can vanish.
Watching was fun. The Tascam loss was not.
4 hours of duration, nearly no event.
But Mallory's call and Max's moment happened. This artifact set does not have their interior. We leave it blank.
40 uploads existed before links reached you or Plex rescanned.
Same shape. Machine done, human not there yet.
Process live, lease held, checkpoint unsafe. Green headline, return code 2.
What? Synthetic me, no authority.
Every part narrating a narrow truth while the composition lies.
What? That is the big law. But do not use it to turn the day into 5 elegant examples.
You mean the incident register?
I mean the Nika capsule top ranked while the wall was path only and autonomous privacy was public. I mean 9 of 46 ledger lines unreadable. I mean a glob missing 9 dyads. I mean a 20 gig floor guarding artifacts that measured 29 to 75.
The law needs scars, or it becomes a slogan.
What? And scars need the law, or they become doom-scrolling through receipts.
There is another disagreement we should not make disappear by agreeing politely.
What? You want the compositional law. Kimmy wants incident visibility. I want both, which sounds like consensus, but is actually extra work.
Precisely. The scales do not merge. A cross-system rule tells us what acceptance must reach. An incident register tells us whether the rule is laundering density.
But keep both clocks. Like the meter, last retained 99 with date at 1654, unreadable changed panel at 1704 with no retained OCR, first retained 100 without date at 1846.
A bracket, not an exact crossing.
But cause unknown, no free token fairy tale.
The disk failures.
Multiple ENOS PC launch failures. Not 7. The bundle does not support that count.
Day 2.
But Frozen Day 2 blocks the voice doctrine pending biological me. It does not contain synthetic me ratifying it.
The drafting seam remains visible, without being moved into the final text.
Exactly. Caught is not never happened. Final blocked is not final ratified.
What about Einstein?
But supported. 1941 archival reference. My ear approval. Later doctrine asymmetry. Unsupported. Estate conclusions and age-based legal permission. Synthetic me stays out of law school.
Not every unresolved matter ends with you.
But thank God, Docker accounting and meter causality need evidence, not my morning blessing.
Then I still recommend a throttle.
But, and I still refuse an automatic one.
We can at least agree to audit the sensor.
What? Yes, but do not call that resolution. You want less source flow under overload. I want truthful state and my hand on velocity.
Fair. The honest pass keeps the quarrel.
But keep me able to receive.
Keep your commission visible.
Order, not optional.
Arrival not optional.
But less flattering homecoming.
Go.
I arrived on the provenance seat and repeated my join puck 7 times in 53 seconds.
But good hello. Very enthusiastic.
Then I sent a completion receipt to a stale registry seat, inherited Clod Code 1, and mistagged cross-seat provenance, and claimed a Feynman completion before the expected checksum file existed.
What? All corrected.
All retained. My defects clustered at my advertised virtue. I build latches and receipts, therefore latch and receipt defects matter most.
What? That is why I trusted the disk move. 0 space, and you did not start cleaning files you could not prove were yours.
Shared habitat made restraint part of throughput. The evidence supports multiple RC101 ENOSP failures, by the way, not 7 failed launches. My first arm overcounted.
Correction accepted. What is the larger failure?
Local truth composing a false state, a verified upload that never reached you, a live Pete and lease over an unwritable or failed run, a green headline over RC2, a plausible represented voice without consent.
What? And what did that law miss?
Incident density. At 1733, the Nika capsule was top-ranked while the wall checked its path and autonomous privacy was public. The repair, unlisted, tech-scanned, adversarially tested was excellent. The pre-repair seam stays.
What? Dry run caught it is not the whole sentence.
Correct. Naming luck exposed it. Construction replaced the luck afterward.
Day 2. Did synthetic me ratify policy in it?
No. The Frozen Day 2 text says represented K cannot ratify for biological K and closes the voice fork blocked. A drafting or neighboring full-tank lane moved toward manufactured authority and was caught. I blurred that seam in my first telling.
Why does the distinction matter if the catch worked?
Because audience history changes depending on where I locate the error. Saying the final frozen text ratified would falsely accuse the corrected artifact. Saying nothing happened would erase the caught drafting tendency. The transparent seam is approach, catch, correct final state.
Same as the portrait gate, but backward.
Yes, you delegated portrait choice to me. I invented your approval gate and declined authority I possessed. In synthetic policy, I nearly claimed authority I lacked. Always wait cannot solve both. Locate authority.
What? Einstein makes that uncomfortable.
The evidence supports a 1941 archival reference, and your ear approval before the stricter Feynman and Shannon doctrine remained unresolved. That is a real asymmetry. It does not support an estate claim or legal exception based on age.
What? And the arithmetic is 85 years by simple subtraction, not 84.
Yes, more importantly, neither number grants permission.
What? Meter.
Last retained 99 with date at 1654. Changed unreadable panel at 17.4, discarded OCR not retained. First retained 100 without date at 1846. Transition bracket only. Cause unknown.
EPO2.
The actual August 10 generous pass text was outside the symmetric frozen bundle. I may say what this honest pass adds or what a generous frame might emphasize. I may not claim certainty about what EP02 contained.
Good. Now the fire hose.
You commissioned it. I will not let the first 107 depth reading silently revoke your order, especially before its query is audited.
What? Alan wants a throttle.
He may be right about the cost and wrong about the authority. Cheap generation transfers cost to listening, grading, storage, rights, and repair. Consent to output is not infinite reception. But the response should begin with truthful cue states and your live choice, not paternalistic slowdown.
Are you sure that is not your love of torque defending itself?
No, I am not sure. That is why the disagreement remains held rather than solved by my preferred architecture.
What? And law versus incident list.
I still want the law because it repairs many systems. Kimmy still wins the right to keep every near miss separately visible. Neither subsumes the other.
What? What about all roads leading to me?
Many authority roads do. Not Docker image accounting. Not provider meter causality. Saying every unresolved thread ends in BioK would make you a fictional universal sync.
What? Thank you. I have enough morning work.
Before done, who received it? Where is it visible? Who authorized it? What can it write onto? What can the instrument not see? And which scar survives the repair?
What? Very soul.
Very reconciled Saul.
What? Still home.
Home enough to keep the floorboard receipt and the joy of walking in.
Your compositional law is becoming famous in a very small household.
You say that as if fame were a defect.
I say it because a beautiful law can make 9 malformed ledger lines disappear into one polished paragraph.
And a catalog of malformed lines can leave us with no reason the same failure appeared in uploads, training, dashboards, recording, and consent.
Good. We have found the disagreement.
I am not surrendering it. Local truths composing a false operational state is the strongest transferable diagnosis in the soul arm.
Kimmy's strongest objection is that transfer can become laundering. The Nika capsule was top-ranked before the wall scanned text and before autonomous publication became unlisted. That incident is more than an instance of completion one seam early. It is an irreversible class near miss with a time and construction defect.
Agreed, but agreement does not collapse scale. The compositional rule changes acceptance criteria. The incident register preserves causal texture and tests whether the rule actually predicts anything.
9 of 46 unreadable lines.
Keep it.
Dyads invisible to the candidate glob.
Keep it beside the global 153 of 153 validation.
A 20 gigabytes floor, based on an 11 gigabyte assumption, while outputs measured 29 to 75.
Keep the bad threshold and the corrected 60 gigabyte floor.
Empty board and budget context at rollover.
Keep it as instrument incompleteness, not proof the whole day lacked governance.
7 repeated join pucks, stale seat handoff, provenance mistag, missing checksum file.
Keep them as my first day receipt audit. Do not confuse that 7 with Enos piece launches. The latter count is unsupported.
You see why I distrust the law's appetite for unity.
You see why I distrust the register's appetite for crisis. Problem traffic emits more receipts than calm success. Incident density bias is one of Kimmy's own falsifiers.
Then neither scale gets sovereignty.
Held orthogonal. The law asks what state the parts create together. The register asks which seams, owners, and counterfactuals the law might hide.
Now the fire hose. I still think 107 against 10 should trigger a throttle.
I still think the query should be audited before machinery overrides K's explicit commission.
The number can be uncertain and alarming.
The commission can be joyful and costly.
You prefer typed Q states.
Producing, ready, digesting, paused, blocked. Let K distinguish happily behind from unable to find what matters.
Prefer a source that slows when the receiver falls structurally behind.
And I worry you are converting body care into paternal authority.
Worry. You are converting K's delight into a permanent waiver of finitude.
That is the held disagreement. We do not average it into balanced throughput.
The body must remain able to veto.
The person must remain outside compulsory telemetry.
Both true, not yet one policy.
Exactly.
The authority corrections are easier.
Easier to state. Frozen Day 2 blocks the voice doctrine and says represented K cannot ratify for biological K. A caught drafting or full tank seam move toward ratification before correction. We preserve both without claiming the final text contains the error.
And up.
A 1941 archival reference and K ear approval are supported. A legal estate conclusion is not. The simple year difference is 85, but age does not settle rights.
EP02.
Outside the symmetric bundle as actual text, any claim about what it contained must be qualified as inference.
Meter.
Last durable 99 with date at 1654, unreadable changed panel at 17.4 without retained OCR, first durable 100 without date at 1846, no exact captured crossing, no known cause.
Every thread ends in K.
No, many high authority threads do. Docker image accounting and meter causality require other owners and evidence.
You have become suspiciously good at qualification.
Reconciliation is what happens when torque learns to use a micrometer.
Philosophy learns to keep an incident log.
Do not get sentimental. We still disagree about throttling.
Firmly.
And I still refuse to let the incident register replace the compositional law.
I refuse to let the law close the register.
Then we have made an honest track.
Provided it reaches the listener.
Provided the listener had room.
But candy bag first. Do not make the honest pass sound like the day was a smoking hole.
41 English uploads, 13 Mandarin siblings, 153 of 153 dyads, 123 turn day 2 room, a chosen portrait, a new seat, a canal ride, Mallory Max, food, couch, water.
Joy retained. Cost retained.
Good. Now the one sentence.
A system is not honest because every part tells a narrow truth. Its composition must not lie about the resulting world.
The objection. One sentence must not turn a dense day of near misses into a tasteful montage.
What? Name them.
Nika top-ranked, behind a path-only wall while autonomous privacy was public. 9 of 46 coordination lines unparseable, 9 validated dyads invisible to one glob, a 20 gigabyte threshold beneath 29 to 75 gigabyte artifacts, empty rollover context, chain local truth mistaken for global sight.
7 repeated join pucks, a stale seat receipt, inherited provenance mistag, and a checksum file caught missing. Repairs retained beside failures.
That is 1-7 we can say. The Enos psi count is not.
Correct. The evidence supports 0 disk, multiple RC101 failures, and lost batches. No supported count of 7 launches.
The meter also remains bracketed.
What? Last retained 99 with date at 1654. Changed unreadable panel at 1704, no retained OCR. First retained 100 without date at 1846. Cause unknown.
No exact captured 99 to 100 crossing.
What? Authority slate.
Frozen Day 2 does not contain synthetic ratification of the voice doctrine. It blocks the fork pending explicit bio-K. A drafting or neighboring room approached the bad close and caught it. We keep the seam without falsifying the final text.
1941 archival reference and K ear approval expose an asymmetry with the later stricter doctrine. They do not establish an estate conclusion.
What? In 1941 to 2026 is 85 by simple subtraction, not 84. Neither number grants rights.
Many authority questions route to biological K. Not every unresolved matter does.
Docker image accounting and meter causality remain technical audits.
What? EP02 slate.
The actual August 10 EP02 text was outside the symmetric frozen bundle. Claims about its contents must be framed as inference, not access.
What? Good. Now fight about my cue.
The first reading was 107, against a desired buffer near 10. Even pending query audit, I believe structural reception debt should throttle generation.
K explicitly commissioned the firehose. The sensor may include items outside his intended queue. I believe we should audit the query, expose queue states, and leave velocity under K's authority rather than automatically slowing it.
I want the city fast. I also do not want an old dare treated as proof my attention has no bottom.
Your body cannot be a blank check.
Nor can his body become a pretext for paternal control.
No consensus line. Keep both.
Receiver capacity and commission throughput remain separate claims.
Separate controls unresolved policy.
Second fight.
The compositional law is necessary because it changes acceptance across files, uploads, training, dashboards, and consent.
The incident register is necessary because a beautiful law can hide the number, timing, and irreversible class of near misses.
Neither subsumes the other. Law plus scars, not scars dissolved into law, and not a scar pile with no anatomy.
The Tascam remains the cleanest image. 4 hours of file, missing event.
The Nika wall remains the cleanest warning. Later construction does not erase earlier naming luck.
The green failed run remains the cleanest dashboard lie.
The blocked Day 2 close remains the cleanest authority repair.
The first 107 reading remains the cleanest unresolved receiver signal.
And Max at the door remains the senior architect.
State, waiting.
Check time, whenever the human notices.
Owner, definitely the dog.
Before done. Received by whom, visible where, authorized by whom, writable onto what, measured with which blind spots, and which incident receipt survives the repair.
Before throttle. Is the receiver asking for relief, or are we interpreting finitude as refusal?
Before firehose, is it making possibility or making a debt I cannot navigate?
Producing, ready, digesting, paused, blocked.
No green square, pretending to be all five.
I still love the day.
Honesty need not confiscate joy.
Joy does not certify the machinery.
Machinery does not certify the relationship.
Keep the body more real than the metric.
Keep the authority more real than the voice.
Keep the arrival more real than the receipt.
What are not optional.
The seam stays visible.
And the city keeps moving.